Graphing lines. You guys showed me last week that we need to work on this a little bit. If you remember from algebra, we have the slope-intercept form of a line is y equals mx plus b. Now, the y and the x are the variables that will always be there. So you're always going to have your x and your y. That won't change. What will change when you see an actual equation, m is going to be a number, and that m value, we've talked about this before, is your slope. That's going to tell you your rise over your run. Now you always have to have a rise over run. You always have to have a fraction, otherwise you won't have a slope. Slope is rise over run, always a fraction. B is called your Y-intercept. That is going to tell you where you cross the y-axis. So whenever you graph a line, you have to have a spot to start from. And that starting spot is your y-intercept. You will always start there. Now that goes for graphing a line. That also goes for a word problem. If you have a word problem, they tell you that you're starting with something, that is going to be your y-intercept number. So let's go ahead and actually look at graphing a line here. So we have y equals 3/4 x minus 2. Again, we have to have a starting point. Our starting point is going to be the y-intercept, -2. So I go to my y-axis, I find -2, and I put a point there. Again, you always have to have a spot to start from. Then I look at my slope. My slope says 3/4. That means I go up 3, since 3 is positive, and I go to the right 4, since 4 is positive. If 3 was negative, I'd go down. If 4 was negative, I go to the left. So here I go. From my starting point, I count up 3, 1, 2, 3, and over 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I put my point there. And I can keep doing that. I can keep going up 3 and over 4. I can also look at this being a -3 over -4 because two negatives cancel to become a positive, so it still reduces to a positive 3/4. Now if I do that, 3 is negative, so I'll be going down. 4 is negative, so I'll be going to the left. So I'm going to go back to my y-intercept. From there I go down 3 to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's my point, and again down 3 to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now once I have my points, you need to graph it. A line isn't a line until you graph the line. So now I have to graph my line through the points. When you graph a line, I want to see 5 points. On your homework, if I don't see 5 points, you don't get full credit. I want to see the y-intercept, 2 points on the right and 2 points on the left. Alright, we're going to practice this a few times. Oh, looks like I have to go to the next page. Alright, now here I have another one I'm going to graph. My y-intercept is 5, so I find 5 on the y-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember, the y-axis is the one that goes up and down, so it'll always be on the vertical axis. And then now my slope, now this is interesting, I just have a -2, so I have to look at, okay, I need a rise over run, so I'm going to put a 1 underneath. And that makes it a fraction. It's always how you can make a fraction if you don't already have one. So I go down 2 to the right 1. Since 2 is negative, I'm going down 2. But 1 is positive. If 1 was negative, it would cancel with a -2, and it would no longer be -2, it would be +2. So 1 is positive, so I go to the right. Now you'll notice, as I keep on going down 2 over 1, or if I go back the other way up to the left 1, so that this pattern keeps on, you'll see that this line is going down. We want it to be going down because it's a negative slope. You should always double check your work and say, okay, according to my equation, I have a negative slope, so my line should be going down just like it is. Our next problem. Let's change color here. We'll go with some green here. My y-intercept is 1. Now my slope says 0.5. Now normally I would say put that over 1, but you can't have a decimal within a fraction. So instead what we do is we say what is 0.5 as a fraction, and that is 1/2. So they're both positive, so I go up 1 to the right 2, up 1 to the right 2, and then I can go down the other way, down 1 to the left 2. Again, my slope is positive, and when I draw the line, my line is going up. So I did this correctly. On our next, on this page, now you're going to see that I don't have y equals mx plus b. Here I have y plus 3x equals 7. in order to graph this, I need to have it so it says y equals mx plus b. So I need to move that 3x over. Now 3x is positive, it's being added, so to move it over I'm going to subtract it. Now notice 7 does not have an x on it, so I'm not going to combine them. Instead I have negative 3x plus 7. Now I can graph it. I go across the y-axis at 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Put my point there. Now my slope is negative 3 over 1, so I go down 3 to the right 1, down 3 to the right 1, or I can go up 3 to the left 1. Now notice I ran out of room, so I'll just put my 5th point back going down again and draw on my line. Now you'll notice my line is going down, so I'm going to double check. My slope was negative, so I'm good. I graphed this correctly. So you're not always going to have the equation of a line that's set up perfectly for you. Here's another example. This one, the x is on the other side, and that's good, but what's bad is this 2 in front of the y. So to solve that, I have to divide by the 2. Now if I divide that by 2, everything gets divided by 2. So the 2's cancel. I have y equals 3 halves x plus 4 divided by 2 is 2. Now don't be worried about that 3 halves. I need a fraction anyway. So I cross the y-axis at 2. My slope is 3 halves, so I go up 1, 2, 3 over 2. Notice that my points are forming a line that's going up, and since 3 halves is positive, that is okay. In fact, it's good. Here I have my 5 points, graph my line, and there it is. Now not everything that we do is going to be set up that way. We might not have an equation given to us. Instead, we might have a word problem. So here it says the number of gallons, G, of water in your storage tank is given by, and this is an important thing, G equals 500 minus 20T, where T with T in days. Using a graph, find the daily rate of water use and determine how many days the tank will become empty and how many days will become empty. So let's understand this. I'm going to label my axes first. So let's see here. According to this, I need to have a y-intercept of 500 and my slope is going to be 20. So let's see here. This is my t value. Normally it's an x. This is my g value. Normally it's a y. I want to go up to 500. Now if I go by 20s, let me see here. There are 20 lines. If I go by 20s, that'll give me 400, not quite enough. So I think I'm going to go by 40s. I'll explain in a second why I'm going to do that. I'm going to go by 40s. So here I have 0, 40, this will be 80. Then we've got another 40 is 120, 160. 200, 240. 280, 320. Yep. 320. Let's see what's the next. We'll go up by 80. This will be 400. This will be 480. And let's see, that will be 520, 560, I think. So my y-intercept is 500. That will be right there. My slope is negative 20 over 1. Now, the reason I went by 40s and not 30s or something like that is because I'm going to have to go down 20 and over 1. Down 20 over 1. But I don't go by 20s, I went by 40s. So I could go down 40, and let's see, if 20 times 2 gives me 40, so 1 times 2 gives me 2. So if I go down 40, then I would go over 2. Alright, but I'm in the middle of the line anyway, so I could go down 20, which would give me to 480, and go over 1. And now if I go down 40, I have to go over 2. Down 40 over 2. Down 40 over 2. Keep on going. Now you may be wondering, why do I keep on going? Well, the whole point of this problem was to find when it equals 0, how many days will the tank become empty. So I'm trying to find when it equals 0. Now I've got a problem because I ran out of grid. Okay, that's one spot. Then I go down 1 over 2. There's another spot. And I need to go 2 more to the right. And I meant down at 0. So now we have to count up days. This is a 20 grid. So I have 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So I'm going to say 25 days. Now we can always check that, you guys. We can check it by taking and saying that G is 0. So we plug it in, we say G is 0. So I have 500 minus 20t, and then we just have to solve for t. So we get rid of the 500. Minus 500 equals negative 20t. Divide by negative 20. So now 50 divided by 2 is 25, so we got 25 equals t, which is what we found by graphing 25 days. All right, the daily rate of water use is 20. They use 20 gallons a day. Now, remember what we said. The Y-intercept is your starting place. You started with 500 gallons. The slope, the idea of the slope is how much does it change from time to time? So if this is negative 20, that means from day to day, because t is days, day to day is 20 gallons. Slope is always going to be how much it changes from time to time. All right, today we're not only going to just work with standard form, or sorry, slope-intercept form, we're also going to work with standard form. Now standard form is when x and y are on the same side of the equal sign, and then you have the constant on the other side. This is no longer slope. This is not slope. And this is no longer your y-intercept. Not your y-intercept. Okay? One thing you'll find, though, is that a and b will be whole numbers. And graphing really isn't that bad. When you graph, what you do is you find the x and y intercepts, and then you only have to find the 2 points, you connect the line, and draw. So let's just try it out here. If you remember x and y intercepts, okay, let's talk about this in some detail here. If you're on the y-axis, pick any point, just pick a point. Okay, so look at that point. The x value is what? So you should be thinking the x value is 0. The y value is 3. Okay, let's pick that point. The x value is 0, the y value is negative 2. Let's pick that point. The x value is 0, the y value is 1. And so what I'm trying to get at is, for a y-intercept, x equals 0. No matter what point we pick there, x was always 0. So to find our y-intercept, I'm going to plug in 0 for x. So we get 2 times 0 plus 3y equals 12. 2 times 0 cancels out. So we just have 3y equals 12. Divide by 3, y equals 4. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my y-intercept. Okay, now let's look at the x-axis. Anywhere you are on the x-axis, let's pick a point. How about there? X is 2, y is 0. Pick right there, x is negative 1, y is 0. Pick right there, x is 1, 2, 3, 4, y is 0. So for an x-intercept, for an x-intercept, y is always 0. So it's always the other thing that's 0. So then I go back to my equation and I say, okay, I'm going to plug in 0 for y. So 3 times 0 cancels out, so I just get 2x equals 12. Divide by 2 on both sides, x equals 6. So we go count that out on the x-axis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And technically, to draw a line, is all you really need is 2 points. So we have our 2 points, and we can connect the dots or not. Let's see if I can do a better job than that. That was ridiculous. All right, let's try that again. So we connect our dots, and there is our graph. Next page. So here's another one. We're going to try this one again. Again, we're finding the x and y intercepts in order to graph instead of doing a slope-intercept. Remember, this is called standard form, where x and y are on the same side and the constants on the other side. So if you remember, we just talked about the x-intercept. What's special about the x-intercept, what's special about the x-intercept is that y equals 0. And I always like to make that note on my paper just so that if I look back I remember what happened, or it's just easier to remember what's going on. So y equals 0, I plug it in, 0 for y. The 0 cancels out the 2, so now I just have 3x equals 6, divide by 3, x equals 2. So I find that on my axis. Then I go and I need to do the y-intercept. Okay, for the y-intercept, x equals 0. So I plug in 0 for x. Now some of you are smarty pantses and think you can do this without writing it down. Again, remember I'm picky. I want to see your handwriting. I want to see you writing down this work for many reasons, so I know how you did it, but then also I want to be able to see if you made a mistake. I can see, is it just a simple mistake or don't you know what you're doing? So make sure you're showing your work on this. So my y-intercept is -3 and my line goes as such. Alright, we have one more and then we're done. Here, I'll start again, my x-intercept. Okay, remind me again, x-intercept, what's so special? We have y equals 0. So if y equals 0, 5 times 0 is 0, 2x equals 10. Divide by 2 on both sides, x equals 5. So I find that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I go to my y-intercept. For my y-intercept, what's special about that? X equals 0. I feel a little bit like Dora asking you a question, expecting you to answer, and then I can't hear you. But x equals 0 for the y-intercept, so we got 2 times 0, 5y equals 10. 2 times 0 cancels out, so I just get 5y equals 10. Divide by 5, and y equals 2. Now that I have my 2 points, graph a line. Hopefully you do better than that. And there you go. That is graphing a line both in slope-intercept form and standard form.